In this video, we will look at the different scenarios for processing a termination, and at processing an ETP and other viewing options in an Australian Pay Global database. You can manage the processing of an employee's resignation, retirement, dismissal, redundancy, and death payment through Transaction View and an eligible termination payment, ETP, if required. If an employee has accrued annual and/or long service leave due on termination and you have set it up in your database, the system will automatically pull through the balances for payment when processing the termination. There are several ways to terminate an employee in Pay Global. You can add a termination transaction into the pay for a standard termination. You can add an ETP to an employee record, then add the termination transaction to the pay to process the ETP and termination payment. You would use this process for redundancy. For example, if you're not paying out an employee and they have no leave balance, you can just add the termination date and reason to the employee's Dates tab, and this will terminate them. When you terminate an employee, their leave balances may be removed when their termination is processed. This is dependent on the leave setup of the leave table that the employee is on. Looking at this leave table, on the Rules tab, you can see Keep Details on Termination is set to No. This means as soon as a termination date is entered for the employee will result in the removal of their annual leave balances. This also applies to annual, sick, or long service leave tables. To process a normal termination without an ETP component, add the termination allowance code to a pay and transaction view. If you have a pay open for the employee's period, this can be used to terminate them. If there are no open pays, a manual pay can be opened for the payment. Go to Transaction View and select the pay sequence that you want to process the termination in. And click OK. Select the employee requiring the termination. You can either click into the code field and type in their code. Alternatively, you can click in the name field and start typing their surname, and this will select the employee. Once the employee is selected, press Insert on your keyboard or right-click and select Insert Allowance. This example is a manual pay, so the pay header will appear. This will not open in standard pays. Click OK to continue. If you know the allowance code for termination, you can type it into the field. Alternatively, select it from the list and then click OK. The termination screen will now display. Add the employee's termination date and select the reason for termination. For this example, we will say that this employee resigned. We have the Pay Long Service Leave entitled and Pay Long Service Leave Pro Rata fields. We'll set them both to Yes, so it's going to pay out the entire long service leave balance. Press OK. We can see that the termination allowance has been added to the pay. Click on the employee again and click F9 to process. And click Yes to save the transaction. The system will process the termination. When you view the log file, it may show related pay sequences. It will also show tax at marginal rates, which is how normal termination leave should be taxed. Close the log file to see that the employee has been paid annual leave on termination and long service leave on termination. Before you can process a termination with an ETP component, you need to complete the ETP on the employee's record. Then enter the normal termination allowance into the pay to pull through the ETP details. Now, let's look at how to process a normal termination with an ETP component. In this example, a redundancy ETP. Open an employee record by clicking on Employees and double-click on the employee. Then click Payroll, Payroll, and click the ETP tab. Click Edit and right-click on screen and select Add Record. In the description field, type in the description of the ETP. Next, add the termination date. Tab to the next field and select the termination reason. In this example, it's redundancy. The termination type is displayed on screen, a bona fide redundancy or early approved retirement. Next, add the date of payment. On the Employment Termination Payments tab, the amounts to be paid out on redundancy are entered. Against the redundancy payment field, type in the amount that you want to pay the employee, for example, $55,000. The employee is not receiving any other payments like retirement, invalidity, or golden handshake. However, the company is paying them out in lieu of notice. In this example, we will pay them out 152 hours. As this is an ETP, we recommend checking excluded and non-excluded payment classifications with the ATO. In this example, we will update this to excluded. This means that the payment will be part of the redundancy payment and will be eligible for the tax-free threshold, depending on the employee's years of service. Finally, click Save and Close. A message box will appear, confirming the ETP. If the ETP is not confirmed, you will not be able to process it in the pay. So, we'll click Yes to confirm. Another message will come up advising that confirming the ETP will freeze the values in this record. There is an option to unconfirm the ETP, which we will look at later. Select Yes again to confirm this ETP. Finally, save and close the employee record, and we will process this through a manual pay. This is done by clicking Transaction View and selecting the pay sequence for the termination. Click on the employee record for the termination, right-click and select Insert Allowance. This is a manual pay, so the pay header comes up. Click OK. Type in the termination allowance code if known, or select it from the list. Then click OK again. You can see the termination date, the reason code, and termination record have been automatically populated from the ETP. Select if you want to pay out entitled and pro rata long service leave. Click OK. Now, let's process the pay. Select Yes to save all transactions and Yes to view the log file. Looking at the log file, you can see the lump sum amounts of the termination payment with ETP. When the log file is closed, you can see that the employee has been paid the redundancy payment and the in lieu of notice, both from the ETP, annual leave on termination, and long service leave on termination. You can also see two tax overrides showing here. The first tax override is for the lump sum D component that has come through from the ETP. The second one is the lump sum A component, which is the annual leave and long service leave on termination, because it's a redundancy. Let's look at how to add an adjustment, ETP. The ETP adjustment is used to process an adjustment to an ETP paid in the current financial year. To do this, open the employee record and click the payroll header and then the payroll icon. Now select the ETP tab. Click Edit and double-click on the original ETP to open it. Next, right-click on the screen and select Add Adjustment. This will create a new record. Let's give the adjustment a description and a date of payment. On the Employment Termination Payments tab, we will adjust what needs to be paid. To increase the redundancy payment, replace the existing figure with the new expected total amount. For example, we paid $55,000 to this employee for redundancy and will now change this to $60,000. Additionally, we need to add more to the in lieu of notice payment, where we originally paid 152 hours. This now needs to be 160 hours. Once changes are made, click Save and Close, then confirm the ETP and confirm again. You'll see now the employee has two ETP records on their employee record. Save and close the employee. Next, go to Transaction View and select the sequence to pay the ETP adjustment in. There's a manual pay open, so we will tick it and then click OK. Now, select the employee you want to pay, right-click, and select Insert Allowance. A message will come up saying, "The employee is already terminated. Do you want to continue?" Click Yes. Again, the pay header will display because this is manual pay. Click OK. Now, type in the termination allowance code if known, or select it from the list. Click OK. We can see the termination has come through with the termination date, redundancy reason, and now it's picked up the adjusted ETP in the Employee Termination Record field. Because we are paying more on the redundancy and in lieu of notice than before, let's change paying out long service leave, entitled and pro rata to no. Then click OK. Let's save the transactions and view the log file. In the log file, Lump Sum D is only showing the difference between the original ETP and the adjusted ETP. When the log file is closed, you will see that the original payment has been reversed and we are processing the new amount. This also applies to the payment in lieu of notice. We have reversed the original amount and are now paying the new amount. On the Tax Override tab, it shows Reversed in Lump Sum D. This figure will be fixed when the pay is processed and closed. When we look at the second Tax Override tab, we can see it's now showing the new total amount in Lump Sum D. From here, you can process and close the pay. Now, let's look at how to add a related payment ETP. A related ETP is used for processing an adjustment to an ETP paid in a previous financial year. Start by opening the employee record. Click the payroll header and then the payroll icon. Now select the ETP tab. Click Edit and double-click on the ETP to open it. Right-click on the screen and select Add Related Payment. Type in the description and the date of payment. Then click the Employment Termination Payments tab. As this is a related payment, the original ETP amounts are not displayed. In a related payment, you will need to add the amounts that you want to pay. In this example, we will add an additional $2,500 against the redundancy payment. Click Save and close when done. Next, confirm the ETP. Finally, click Save and close the employee record. Now, go to Transaction View to process the payment. Select the pay sequence if you have one open and click OK. Click on the employee to add the termination transaction. In this example, it states that Julie has been terminated. Click Yes to continue. On the pay header, click OK if using a manual pay. Type in the allowance code if known or select it from the list. Click OK. The ETP record is now showing with the original termination date and reason code. Click OK to continue. Now it's time to process the pay. Select Yes to save the changes. On the log file, it shows another $2,500 going to Lump Sum D. Looking at the log file, it shows the employee being paid $2,500 only. There's no tax because Lump Sum D is not taxed. The tax overrides show $2,500 is being paid to Lump Sum D. Click OK, then process and close the pay. You may need to reverse an ETP when a termination has been withdrawn or for other reasons. To reverse an ETP, you'll need to add an ETP adjustment. The ETP adjustment is for processing an adjustment to an ETP paid in the current financial year. Start by opening the employee record. Click the payroll header and then the payroll icon. Now select the ETP tab. Click Edit and double-click on the ETP to open it. Then, right-click on the screen and select Add Adjustment. Type in a description for the ETP adjustment. The original termination date and reason will stay. Select the date of payment. Next, click the Employment Termination Payments tab. Zero out all the values in the amount fields, and if you paid any in lieu of notice, this would need to be changed to 0 as well. Click Save and Close. Click Yes to confirm this ETP. Finally, click Save and Close to close the employee record. Now, to add the reversal to a pay, click Transaction View and select the pay sequence you have open. Click on the employee who had the ETP reversal added to, and right-click Select Insert Allowance. A pop-up appears stating the employee has been terminated and if you want to continue. Click Yes. Click OK on the pay header if using a manual pay. Now, type in the termination allowance code if known or select from the list. Then click OK. The details from the ETP are shown, including the termination date, the reason, and the termination record that you're processing. Click OK to continue. Let's process the pay and save the transaction. Click Yes to view the log file. You can see the amount that was originally paid in the redundancy has now been reversed. Let's close the log file. We can see that the employee's gross and net are the same because the redundancy was a tax-free component. Process and save the ETP. Finally, let's process the pay and close the pay. If the employee was terminated by accident, you will need to go back into their employee record, click the Dates tab and remove the termination date and reason. Do this by clicking Edit. highlight the termination date, and delete. Click Yes to confirm you want to remove the termination date, and do the same for the termination reason. Finally, click Save on the employee record. The employee is now active again. Please note, you will need to go through and fix up any annual leave or any leave balances that may have removed. Now, let's look at processing a pay upon the death of an employee. When doing so, you first need to determine if an ETP is required. An ETP is still required for a payment generally be paid via an ETP, for example, outstanding leave credits. For all other terminations, you would process a termination in the pay, like a normal termination. Start by clicking Transaction View, select the pay sequence, and click OK. Click the employee you need to process the payment for. Then right-click and select Insert Allowance. Click OK on the pay header if using a manual pay. Type in the termination allowance code if known, or select it from the list. Click OK. Select the date terminated and the reason code. There are 3 reason codes to choose from: death payment to dependent, death payment to non-dependent, and death payment to trustee. In this example, we will select death payment to trustee. Next, select whether you are paying out long service leave entitled and/or long service leave pro rata. Once done, click OK. Now, let's process the pay and click Yes to save the transactions. Click Yes to view the log file. The system has placed everything paid to the employee into the lump sum of final pay upon death. When the log file is closed, we can see that annual leave on termination and long service leave on termination have been paid, and no tax amount, as there is no tax deducted from a final pay upon death. From here, you can process and close, and then make the payment to the trustee. There are additional types of ETPs that may require processing. This includes gratuity payments, paying out leave credits on termination, rostered days off, and accrued days off. The system processes these ETP payments in the same way as other ETP payments. You can view ETP calculations when you process an ETP in a pay. To do this, click Transaction View, select the pay sequence, and click OK. Click the employee with the ETP payment. Then, click the View menu and select Proposed Changes. Scroll down to see the ETP payment details. Shown here are the employee's details, termination type, start date, date of birth, tax-free portion of the payment, and how it's calculated. For example, the employee gets $12,524 tax-free for the first year and then $6,264 for each completed year of service. In this employee's case, that totals $112,748. And since the ETP was $50,000, the entire ETP is tax-free. If an ETP is taxed, you would see the amount under cap and the tax rate that applied, as well as the total tax withheld for the ETP at the bottom. During the termination process, there may be several tax overrides generated and added to Transaction View. This occurs when a pay is processed. For example, processing an ETP that includes redundancy and leave credit payments will generate multiple tax overrides. The tax overrides displayed may refer to Lump Sum C, Tax on C, Lump Sum D, Lump Sum A, B, E, and Final Pay upon death. Click Tax Override, and on the pop-up screen, we can see the details from the ETP, with this one displaying the Lump Sum A amount. Lump sum amounts that the termination process generates cannot be adjusted. If you need to process an additional tax override in the same pay, do not use the system-generated tax overrides. Instead, you would add another tax override. Where a system-generated tax override is used, there is the potential for doubling up the lump sum amounts, which will also mean STP, and end-of-year reporting will be incorrect. If an employee requires a payment but has been terminated, there is no need to reinstate them. Instead, you can include the termination allowance in the pay you're processing the payment in, along with any other allowances the employee requires. To do this, click Transaction View, select the pay sequence, and click OK. In this example, we will make a payment for Julie. Right-click and select Insert Allowance. A pop-up appears stating the employee has been terminated and if you want to continue. Click Yes. Click OK on the pay header that has come up as this is a manual pay. Type in the allowance code that needs to be paid. In this example, it's overtime. Click OK. In the quantity field, type in the overtime hours to be paid. If you're happy with the remaining details, click OK to continue. Since the employee has been terminated, a termination transaction needs to be added to the pay. To this, by right-clicking and selecting Insert Allowance. Type in the termination transaction code and click OK. The original termination date and reason are shown. Click OK to continue. You can now process the pay. Click Yes to save the transaction. Click Yes to view the log file. It will indicate related pays and the employee's previous termination. It will also show the pay process was successful. With the log closed, you can see that only overtime has been paid. You can now process and close this pay. You can delete an ETP that has been created and confirmed, provided it does not display a pay sequence in them. There are several steps you need to follow to do this. Click the payroll header and then the payroll icon. Now select the ETP tab. Click Edit and double-click the ETP to open it. This ETP is confirmed, but there's no pay sequence being displayed, so it has not been included in a pay. Click Edit, then right-click and select Unconfirm ETP. Next, scroll and click the Leave Credits tab. Delete any lines or entries listed by clicking on them, then right-click and select Delete Record. Click Yes to confirm you want to delete, and click to Save the record. On the pop-up messaging asking you to confirm the ETP, it is important to select No. While still in the ETP, click the Payment Summaries tab. If there are entries showing here, they will need to be deleted before you can delete the ETP. In this example, right-click on the life benefit and select Delete Record. Click Yes to confirm you want to delete the payment type, and then close the ETP. Finally, right-click on the ETP and select Delete Record. Click Yes to confirm you want to delete the ETP. Then click to save the employee record, and the ETP has now been deleted.